Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel outside the target demographic. Today we will be checking the fluids in the Honda CL350 barn project. Let's get started. I know the gas tank is empty because I'm the one who emptied it, but before we run the engine we want to make sure that there is oil in the engine. So the Kickstarter kind of sort of gets in the way. You'll have to work with it. Rotate counterclockwise. And you are presented with a dipstick. I'm going to need to switch to my other hand, but we're going to wipe the dipstick. Right now we have a false positive. It is saying that there is oil in it because I never wiped it to make it dry, to then get it wet, to then have an accurate reading. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this off and we're going to recheck it. You'll notice I'm on the center stand. I believe the bike has to be upright in order for you to get a reading, so keep that in mind. The side stand is going to put it at a bit of an angle, so you want to be either sitting on it or holding it upright, or have someone sit on it or hold it upright for you to check the oil. So let's see what the actual result is. All right, so now that it is dry, we're going to go ahead, put it in, rotate it all the way until it latches, give it a couple seconds to register, and then unscrew it. And we have dark, as we just saw right there, but if anything, we are a little high. So we are over, let's try and get a focus here. We're over the top notch. We want it in between the top and the bottom notch. Now, to be fair, I have been not kickstarting it. I know there's no gas, no battery, but I have been cycling the engine, so it could have been bubbling, but it's better to have too much oil than not enough. A trick for the video, whenever you're trying to thread something into another thing, go ahead and unscrew it until you hear a click. And that's the thread passing the other thread, and now you know that your threads are lined up. You're less likely to rethread it or misalign it and dork up the threads. The other thing I noticed with the CL350, I don't know if it's the same for other, CBs or other Hondas, you have to be aware of how you're pushing the dipstick in. Right now that's as far as it'll go, and you can tell I'm misaligned, and as I try to right it up, it's catching on a shelf. So you kind of want to put it straight down and ride that curve down until it seats. For some reason they gave it like a opening that it has to seat into inside the gearbox there. So go ahead and get that relatively hand tight. At this point I'm going to try adding some gas. I want to make sure that my petcock moves, that it isn't, you know what, we'll set it to stop and we'll see what it does. I'm going to add a little bit of gas. The last time I did this experiment, it purged everywhere. So let's see what we got. I want to make sure my tank has a little bit of rust. I will need to reseal it from the inside. That'll be a project I haven't done before, but let's go ahead and add some gas and see what she does. I added about 1/4 cup, and so far I don't see any leaks or anything, which is ideal. If I turn it to on, I don't see any leaks or anything. I am on the center stand. If you have it on the side stand, the bike is going to be leaning off to the left and all the gas is going to pull on the left side. You'll notice this is pulling from the right side of the tank. So we're just going to add a little bit more gas. You can see there's a crossover tube here. So even though the tank is in a U shape between the two bottom portions of the U, that hose should be allowing the gas in. So I think we're okay. My concern is I can add more gas and it's probably going to leak again. I believe it did leak 5 years ago. That's why I put this away. I didn't have the time for it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to physically lean the bike over my way, force it over to this side, and see if it leaks. I'd rather it leak 1/4 cup, which is about what I put in there. It's not very much at all. I'd rather it leak 1/4 cup all over my driveway rather than 3 gallons. So let me see what we got. All right, so I leaned it towards me and I did get some leaking, but it turns out it's water off of the engine block. So this is the third of many for this mini series. And I just finished washing it maybe an hour 2 hours ago. So there's some residual water that is dripping off of the engine cooling fins, which is great. I'm starting to wonder if I didn't have this mixed up with the other motorcycle that was leaking. So let me go ahead and we're going to add a little bit more. I'm going to tip it. We're going to see what we have. The last thing you want, and my 20-year-old me didn't fully understand why you'd have the tank of liquid explosive dinosaur above the thing that heats up as it burns liquid explosive dinosaur. That seemed like a really bad idea. So we want to make sure that we have gas, but it is a controlled flow of gas. For those of you who don't know, a petcock is basically a flow valve. So we have stop this way, we have on, down, and once you run out of gas, you'll switch it to reserve. So with a car, it will tell you, bink, you have 80 miles before an empty tank, and it will continue pulling from the same gas tank. It's just giving you an alarm kind of thing. This one, your bike will mechanically start sputtering as if it is out of gas. When you switch it to reserve, I think you have another 0.4, 0.5 gallons, which when you're getting 35, 40 miles a gallon, gets you 20 miles to the next gas station. So it's a very we'll say stupid way of doing it, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. There's no electronics, there's no computer, there's no indicators, there's no lights, there's no anything like that on this thing. So by them having a mechanical device that would mechanically reduce, you're pulling from here until you switch to the reserve, and then it's a physically shorter pipe, which is going to be pulling from closer to the bottom of the tank. So I just want to make sure that this control valve is working. Once the gas goes out of the tank, it will be fed into your carburetor bowl. The carburetor bowl will have a pin, like a sewing machine, dipping into it. And every time it dips, it's pulling gas into the airflow from your air filter, and it gets sucked into the engine, burned, and then exhausted out. So let me go ahead and add a little bit more gas, and we'll see how she does. So you can kind of see right there, I have at this point maybe like a fifth of a gallon in there. And it occurred to me that I had said the on valve is a tube about this high, the reserve is a tube that's lower. I've had it on the on setting, which means I wouldn't be pulling from the gas, right? Because I'm pulling from higher up. So my Honda ST1100 is a plastic tank. It's actually my air filter, and the gas tank, since it's going to weigh like 60 pounds, is underneath the seat. So by adding the cold gas to this metal gas tank, I can physically feel the 50-degree gas going through it. That's something I haven't felt in a very long time. So on the reserve setting, I should be pulling from the lower portion, and I'm not seeing any leaks at all. I may be able to ride this today. How wicked would that be? I have been sloshing it back and forth to try and, well, you can see I just got it all up on the paint. Beautiful. You want to get that up as quick as you can. So we know there's gas in there. I mean, it's probably to here, and we have that crossover tube. So it does seem to be holding gas. It must be the other bike that was leaking. I'm not sure. So with the oil, we did notice that it was dark, and that's fine. I'm going to be running sea foam through this, and that's going to be breaking down any of the deposits and buildups in the carburetor and stuff like that. And we're going to have to do an oil change once we do that. So if I can get this running, we are going to be adding additives to it that would require an oil change anyway, so there's no point in doing that oil change now. You'll notice I don't have a battery for it. I guess I'll have to put one on order. In the meantime, I'm going to try and jerry rig one into place. This is going to be my negative. I believe this one is my positive. This is the positive for the starter, which I can bypass by using the Kickstarter. And then this and this is part of my pigtail connection, and you use this for a battery charger, a battery tender to maintain the battery. That doesn't exist. So let me see if I can't throw one in there, and damn, this thing may run. You will notice this is jerry rigged, but this is a known good battery from the wife scooter. We have positive to negative. We have two connections here. One is to the electric starter and one is to the rest of the bike. And if I do this, oh, come on, there you go. It does turn over nice and strong. We definitely have the engine is, you know, turning over. It's not bound up or anything like that. I did feel a little bit of air coming off of the muffler, so we know that we are getting compression and all that. So at this point, it's just giving it enough juice until she cranks. So about 3 times now, I've tried cranking it over, and that's kind of good. So as I said, everything in there is dried out. It's not used to having fluid ran through it. So you slowly want to introduce the gas to the system. And you also don't want to fry your starter. So the starter will heat up pretty quickly. It's trying to crank over a 350 cc engine. So you don't want to hyperload it. So cranking it for about 10 seconds, maybe 15 rotations, and then letting it cool down for 30 seconds, trying again. This is slowly going to reintroduce things to 1, moving around, 2, the fluids being added, 3, the air being sucked through, all that stuff. So don't don't keep holding it down until you finally get something to break or something to start. Just go ahead and let it cool down a bit. Do squeeze your brake just in case you go somewhere. Pretty strong turnover, and from time to time I can hear it sputter, which tells me it is trying. It definitely wants to. I can more feel a buzz through the frame than hear a sputter, but she's definitely trying. Like I said, be patient with it. It hasn't ran for a while. You don't jump right out of bed and run a marathon, so give it some time. She'll be good to you. As we're waiting for it to crank, go ahead and check your air filter. Make sure there's no mice or anything and that the air filter is still there. It is dirty. It will need to be replaced, but I'm not trying to suck a rat's nest into the engine, which is good. Based on this layout, it appears there's going to be an air filter on the other side. Let me double check. Your bikes may be different. It looks like we have a air filter going to a carburetor. So I'll check the other side after I give it a crank and see if she'll start. All right, she tried. Here we go. Little sputter. Hey! Ooh, that battery's starting to wind down a bit. I'm gonna let it cool down. So I started blipping the throttle. I'd go full throttle and close, and on its way close, maybe the last 10% of it, I could feel the bike start sputtering a little bit and shaking through the frame. So did that a couple times, and she appears to be working. So that tells us a couple things. 1, we have compression. 2, we have spark. 3, we have gas. And 4, we have air. Those are the 4 things you need for a running engine, and I seem to have all of them. Fantastic. Looks like all I need to do is put a battery in this thing and she'll be ready to go. Off camera, before I started doing all this, we filled up the tires with the proper amount of air. They were very, very dead, as I realized as I was pushing this uphill from the barn. So recharge them. Just because they are holding air now doesn't mean they'll be holding air tomorrow. So you do want to double check your air pressure on those. A big part of staying upright and staying in control of the bike is having properly inflated tires. So with that said, let's do... Ooh. Ooh. Come on. Ha ha ha. Come on. Ooh. That's interesting. I don't think it's flooding. I'm not sure why it started slowing down, but I have been taxing that battery for a bit. For a scooter, it's more of a and it starts running. It's not really designed to be cold cranking an engine into starting for the first time in 5 years. So that is water, not oil. So we will see. But it did run for just the smallest amount of time there. All right, so I pulled the battery, put it on a charger. It's reading at 11.1 volts, which is not great. The back side of the battery felt warm to the touch. It has been sitting in the sun. It's maybe 54 degrees right now, so I would say it's warmer than I would believe a 54-degree day battery to be. But we have been trying to pull the engine over quite a bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave the gas in there, let it continue to do what it's doing in there. The battery is going to be on charge, and we'll see if I can't get it running by the end of the day. What a good day. So she does run. As you can see, she only runs when I hold the throttle. Not sure what that's all about, but it'll work its way through. The next step is, ooh, excuse me. That battery was charged on an external charger. We need to confirm if the electrical system of this bike is charging. A 12 volt battery is 12.6 volts at dead. And with a charging system should be like 13.5 to 14.5, depending on, I don't know what this 50-year-old thing will do. I also checked the left and right turn signals. The left one kind of hung up and the lights would stay on. The right one would blink, and then the left one started doing a much slower blink. So I'll have to figure out what that is about. The headlight does not appear to work. Right here is a switch for off, low, high. And neither the low or high seem to work. Could just be the bulb is blown. I feel like I have one of those somewhere. If not, we'll have to do some digging into it. But good enough for day driving, I suppose. So yeah, there we go. I do have a can of starter fluid. I tried spraying it into the air filter. It made no difference. Apparently all I had to do was hold the throttle at about 10-20% open, just ever so slightly. And it would run pretty smooth, actually. So something may need to be tuned, or maybe the gas bowls aren't fully filled or something like that. So fine tuning at this point, but perfectly functional the same day I pulled it out of the barn. Love me some Hondas. This bike I got for $500 in 2011, 12. And I bought it from a guy. It had 8.5 volts on the 12 volt battery. I rode it home in the dark with my dad. He was riding behind me on the motorcycle. We went down there to look at it on. And I've learned a great deal on this bike. Stupid simple. Everything's very exposed. There's no fairings or anything like that to remove. Very simple design. And I've learned a great deal on it. So looks like I just need to throw a battery into it and she'll be serviceable. And then we do have the headlight that we'll need to address and a couple other odds and ends. But proof that the engine is working, the longer it runs, the more I'll be able to see if it does or doesn't have that leak, and if it is or isn't as bad as I remember. But not a bad way to spend the day. So I also have a Honda XL 500, and I guess that's the one I poured the gas into and it poured everywhere, because I distinctly remember gas going everywhere, and it was parked next to this one in the barn. So that'll be a future project as well. But for today, this is outside the target demographic. I appreciate you guys stopping by. As always, any questions, comments, concerns you have, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.